My wheelchair is a Quickie Q7. Hi everyone, so I just wanted to do a video on my custom wheelchair. I get a lot of requests for it, so I just thought that I would show you guys the special features to my custom wheelchair. So here's the front of it and the side. And here's the back. Taking the backpack off so you guys can see it without the backpack. Okay, so here's the back without the backpack on it. This little part right here, this black part, is an adapter for hanging this, and I'll explain this in a little bit. Hanging this on the back of my wheelchair, it hangs like this, and I can hang it behind my backpack too. I just have that adaptation on there for the freewheel, that's what it's called. So now I'm going to take it apart. I'll show you the cushion. So this is my custom cushion cover. I have a few of them and they make me happy. So here's the cushion. I'll show you the inside. So this one has a little bit of a curve right here. This goes in the back and this is the front. And right here it has a little bit of a curve for your legs. This is between your legs. It's the Slimline honeycomb cushion, if you guys are wondering the actual name to it. This is the inside. So this is the bottom. It's like a bluish green gel, and then this is the top. It's a yellow gel, and I don't know if you could see this, but it's like a honeycomb. This one I love a lot because I get really overheated from after my brain injury. I've never been able to regulate body temperature, so I'll either get really cold or really hot, and most of the time it's really hot. Even if the temperature is not even hot outside, I'm like dying. So this is really helpful because the honeycomb shape is kind of like a, how do I explain that? Like air can go through it, so it's very like aerated. So it definitely keeps you cooler, keeps you less sweaty while you're sitting the whole day. It's also extremely comfortable if you saw how I was flexing it. So this is a wheelchair cushion for somebody who's not paralyzed. I'm sure if somebody was paralyzed, they may be able to use this, but it's not the best one for them because normally those have like a hole sort of in the center to keep themselves from getting sores, which there's times where I'm in a wheelchair for a very long time and it's you know, there are possibilities of sores, so I do shift myself and stuff, but I'm not, you know, permanently in a wheelchair, so I don't need to worry about it as much. So on my really bad days, and let me explain that a little bit more, really bad days. So there's days where my right side numbness is completely like debilitating to my right side, so I can't use it at all. Sometimes the pain that I have in my right side is so bad that I don't want to use my right side at all. And sometimes my pain overall in my body is really bad, so I'll use the wheelchair. But when I can't use my right side, I have to use the wheelchair like the entire time. When I'm in really bad pain, I use my wheelchair to try and keep my pain level you know, from increasing, try and keep it down. And then there's days where I'm really dizzy and lightheaded and I'm having a lot of, you know, passing out spells, fainting spells. So it's best for me to just be in the wheelchair. Changing elevation when I'm really dizzy and lightheaded really causes me a problem. That's why one of Colt's tasks for picking stuff up for me is because if I'll change elevation to get it, sometimes I'll just like pass out. So it's best on days like that to use the wheelchair as well. So there's a wide variety of why someone could be using a wheelchair when they're not quadriplegic or paraplegic. So yeah, that's a little bit of info on that. So here it is without the backpack and without the cushion on it. Has these side guards right here. These I normally take off when I'm using it during, you know, summertime or hotter weather or whatever. Most of the reason these are there is like a splash guard, kind of like on trucks behind the wheels. But it's mostly useful for when it's snowing, when it's raining, bad weather, because the wheels, as they're turning, they kind of splash stuff up on you. But you can remove those. You can use it without them. You could use it with them. So I use it both ways, with and without, depending on the weather. I do have natural fit hand rims. So these rims right here don't have a gap in between the rim and the wheel like a normal wheelchair does, where your thumb fits down in there. And the reason for that is I do have right side numbness and I have broken my fingers more than I can count. So they actually special ordered these for me because it's more dangerous for me to have a gap right there. And it's not that I just shove my hand in there and break my fingers, it's that I can't feel my right side. So I can use it just fine on most days, but I can't feel it at all. So while I'm wheeling, if I were to have my fingers slip in there, which happened very commonly, which I didn't know was going to be an issue when I didn't have natural fit hand rims, and I would hit, there's support beams in between this bar and the wheel when there is a gap right there, and I would hit that and, you know, dislocate my thumb or break my fingers, stuff like that. I also have mag wheels, which is what these are called, with the few spokes instead of all the metal spokes like a bicycle tire. The reason I have that is for the same reason. I used to get my fingers stuck in the other spokes and break my fingers or hurt my fingers pretty bad, and I wouldn't even know that I was doing it. So I have these now because just the occasional bump of these or whatever is not going to snap my fingers like sticking it between metal spokes and then it continuing to turn with my fingers in there. So that's just another adaptation that I absolutely needed. Unfortunately, these wheels are heavier than the other ones. I did need as much of a lightweight wheelchair as I could get, but unfortunately with all the adaptations that I needed, the wheelchair is not as light as I was hoping and as much as like they were hoping for as well. So as we were adding on adaptations, we were going, well, that's a little bit extra weight, that's a little bit extra weight, that's a little bit extra weight, and unfortunately it turned out a lot heavier than I would have liked. I can still, you know, it still helps me a lot, and the weight factor wasn't as big of a deal as the adaptations that I needed, so it was something that just kind of had to be put aside. Another thing on the hand rims is there's an extra strip right here that goes all the way around, and it's extremely sticky. And this was an added, the natural fit hand rims are one adaptation, but this is also added to it. That stickiness is to help me grip because I am numb and weak on my right side. It was harder for me to grip my wheelchair fully to stop it if I needed to. And with my right side weakness, it also hindered me gripping it enough to stop. So with this skidding, basically it's really grippy. It skids my hand along it more even if I'm not squeezing as hard to stop. So it really helps me control the wheelchair better than if I didn't have this gripping part. The backrest of my wheelchair is by Ride Designs. It's a Java. It kind of curves around your back. It does have some more support in the middle up at the top, but it does curve around your back a little bit, and that's another thing that I did need for fainting and passing out and even seizures, that if I was in my chair still, normally I am not. I lay down because my service dog alerts me to them before they happen, but if I was still in my wheelchair, it would keep me more from falling to the sides and stuff, which it's not, obviously it's not perfect, but it's better than a completely straight back that I would guarantee fall to the side or whatever before the person that's with me can notice that I'm having a seizure, I'm going to pass out, or maybe I even notice. I mean, if he alerted, then we're all good, but if I was in a situation where he wasn't with me or got distracted or something like that, it's also helpful with my right side weakness and holding myself up. It comes around me a little bit. There's a lot of cushion inside of it, and it is also very breathable, so that has helped me a lot too with my overheating issues. We wanted to add on this adaptation of a longer brake that, I mean, it can be removed and it can be, you know, used as well. Just because of my right side numbness and weakness, it makes it easier on the torque of braking because it's a longer lever. It also is easier for if I happen to not be looking or something, I can still reach down and do the motion of braking and hope that I did. With a smaller lever, I have more chance of missing it and not braking on the right side. Most of the time I watch where my hand goes because it's numb and I have to. But yeah, that is something that has really helped me a lot. Another adaptation that I have on here is these red shock absorbers. I'm not sure if you can see them. So they have a red shock, the shock absorbers on both sides, because I have such bad pain and head pain that the vibration could cause it to be even worse. So that was another thing that added weight to the wheelchair, but was needed more than a lightweight wheelchair. But those have helped extremely a lot. Like, I have test ridden in other wheelchairs and been in other wheelchairs, and I have had other wheelchairs, and they are completely different compared to this one with the shock absorption. So it does really help with pain, and just the bumps in general. It really helps. So another thing is I have shock absorbers right here on these front wheels. These are frog legs, and so they're minimal shock absorption, but they do help still. So I have had those on as well, which is another added weight. I have multiple types of foot plates that I can change in and out of. This one is a fixed plate. You can, move it and then fix it into that position again. But this one is on here because I use this freewheel, and that's another thing that I'll talk to you about later. But I use that, and it has to be a fixed foot plate for that. And since I use that quite frequently, I've been using this sturdy foot plate. But I do have other ones that are adjustable in the angle and the drop and everything. And I do have one that is a lift up so you can step out of the wheelchair, because I'm not completely in a wheelchair 100%. I can get up and get out of it standing up. So instead of just transferring, I do transfer myself when I need to, but when I can stand up and get out of it, it's very helpful to have the lifting foot plate, because it's just one more thing that I could trip on, and it's very helpful. And plus, I wouldn't have to step out away from the wheelchair as far when it lifts up, and I can safely, it comes with a whole different bar. So the bar actually goes set straight across. The bar goes back like this and up, and the foot plate lifts backwards, which means that you have that entire gap right there to stand up safely instead of stepping way out here and kind of being off kilter. So those are just a few things to think about. Just extra stuff hanging in my wheelchair. So there's like a cute pouch and medical bracelet and stuff that I just left extra on there. These are for tying down. These hooks right here are for tying the wheelchair down, so that you don't harm the frame in any way. I do have light up wheels on the wheelchair. That's for, you know, mine and Colt's safety at nighttime. Obviously they're cool too. So that's something that is nice to have on here. I also have, I think it's called candy apple green. I'm not sure for sure, but it's kind of like a Granny Smith green color, but it's really shiny. I do have that color because it is my favorite color, and I'm so thankful that I could get the color that I wanted. It's also traumatic brain injury awareness color, so that's a bonus. Let's see, I'll take the back off so you can see it. So, the back comes off that simple. It has Velcro on this part that connects to the seat, and then you set these hooks right here, the bottom ones, into the cradle and then rock it back. It's as simple as that. This also has a feature to fold down, so I can take this off and fold it down flat, or I can just fold it down like that. I can also do straight up sitting and different levels of leaning back. So the other reason for that is also for passing out and seizures and stuff like that, to be able to sit back. So it really can help. So I'm very thankful for that feature. But without, so there's just two pulls right here that you pull or push up, and that comes off. So it's just easy to pack in the car if you need to take that off and make it even smaller. Here again is how you lay it down flat completely. Again, this adaptation is for the freewheel. Other than that, it would just be this. The wheels come off. My wheels are quick release, so you push this button on the side and you just pull it out. So then I'll release the other wheel. So here's the wheelchair with everything taken off of it. The backing taken off and the wheels taken off. So this is just the frame. Another thing that I have added on it right here, I don't know if you can see that, right here on the like center axle of the wheelchair, this is for the Smartdrive. So I have a few other things that are added onto here that are not just adaptations to the actual wheelchair, but they're also adaptations that aren't actually permanently on the wheelchair that I can use to help me. So they have to have their mounts for me to be able to use them. So here are two more tie downs. There's two in the front, one on each side. There's one right here, one right here, one right here, and one right here. These two move. The other ones are, you know, permanently in that place. These are all for clipping on, tying down, stuff like that. If you're in the wheelchair, if you're not in the wheelchair, some public transportation and stuff, they have to, you know, lock you in for safety and stuff. They have to use these, or there is, there could be issues with bending the frame if there's an accident, or if they have like a self-tightening winch or something, it could bend the frame if they just wrap it around the frame. So these are very helpful to make sure that your wheelchair keeps its sturdy integrity, that there's no, you know, frame damage that can harm you, or, you know, your skeletal structure as well, because if something's a little crooked, it could harm you. I actually had a frame that was bent before this, and didn't know that it was bent, but it didn't have any of the tie downs and stuff like that. And I actually hurt my shoulders pretty bad, one worse than the other because it was crooked. instead of like equal damage, basically. A wheelchair that you have to use because of a disability, not just a temporary disability of a surgery or something like that, but something that you're going to be using either on and off or constantly for a long period of time. You need to get a custom made, built for you wheelchair, or it can be harmful to you. If it's too big, if it's too small, either way it could harm you. If you get something used from like a pawn shop or a yard sale or online, Craigslist, something like that, it could also harm you as well because you don't know the history of the wheelchair. You don't know if it's the right size for you. Even if it is the right size, you don't know if the frame could be bent. You also don't have an expert's opinion on the backrest, the cushion, all the adaptions that you're going to need for your individual circumstances and disability. If you want something that is 100% fit to help you through your daily life and be a tool that you can use, and it's not going to harm you in any way, you really need to get your doctor to talk to you about a custom wheelchair, and then have the specialist talk with you about everything that you'll need on that wheelchair. So I'm going to put this back together, and then I'm going to show you a few things that I can use on my wheelchair to help me even further. So another thing is, if you're using a wheelchair pretty constantly or often, you normally wear gloves because people get blisters and calluses and cuts and stuff like that, and it's just uncomfortable to have your hands being rubbed, constantly trying to grip. Sometimes when you're going down like a steep hill, it could burn your hands if you're the friction while you're trying to slow down, stuff like that. So people use gloves. I actually have a few pair of gloves that I wear that are okay brands. I've never found anything that's just amazing that doesn't break down, wear down, and rip all the time. Like, you go through gloves like crazy. And those ones I use for really cold days, winter times. I still mostly use these during winter too, but if I were to wear those, that's the reason for it. These are Handband Pros, and I wear these. There's a few different styles that I wear. This one is just right here on my hand. It's really lightweight, inexpensive, easy to put on, and right here is where I grip the wheelchair. This is all non-skid, very grippy material right here on the front. It also has a Bible verse on it, so that's amazing as well. But this helps so much, and I have not had any of the pairs that I've ever gotten truly break down to the point where I can't use them anymore. They are all still usable. They get pretty raggy and stuff after months and months of use, which, I mean, after 1 week of use in a regular pair of gloves, they're goners. So months and months of use, and they look a little raggy and dirty and stuff like that, but they have never broke down fully. So these are amazing, life-saving. That's one kind that I have. And here's another kind that I have. It has the same slip as the other one right here where your hand slips in, but it also has this part where it wraps around. They have holes in them as well, in the front and the back, and you can do all sorts of different, like tons of different ways of putting them on. Of course, I know the way that helps me the most, so I've always put just my pinky in. But this is the same thing. It has the grip right here, and it wraps around, so it's like even, it stays on you better, which you know, I've had to use these a lot because of my right side numbness, just in case it's gonna like fall off, because I have had those fall off before, and thank God I've noticed. And Colt does like auto retrieve, so when I drop something, he'll pick it up normally. So unless he doesn't notice, I'm probably not gonna lose it, but there is a very good use for both of these. These ones are definitely a lot like sturdy on your hand and stuff, so even when you're gripping the wheel going down a really big hill, or you're going really fast and you gotta slow down, instead of it shifting a little bit or whatever, it's more sturdy on your hand. So these have both been really helpful for the wheelchair, and they literally, I go through gloves so quickly that I just stopped buying them and wanted to like callus up my hands, because I was wasting so much money on gloves and it wasn't worth it, because I started getting holes in them anyway and started callusing my hands. When I found Handband Pros, who sponsored me, has changed my life forever in a wheelchair. These are originally made for a lot of different things. Wheelchair use is definitely something that they're helpful with, but they're also used for weightlifting and stuff like that, that people get their hands ripped, the skin ripped on their hands. I'm just so glad that I have these to help me. So here is the item that I keep talking about and promising that I'm going to explain more. This is a freewheel, and you take it and extend the wheel out. And then you clip it onto the foot plate. I was talking about that to you earlier when explaining the foot plate. So you clip it onto the foot plate, and your wheelchair of 4 wheels now becomes a 3-wheel wheelchair. It lifts the little wheels off the ground. It's much closer to the ground than the little wheels are. And the reason for this is the freewheel, it does exactly what it's called. It gives you freedom. So I have gone across, you know, fields of grass before, and it is so hard to go through grass with skinny wheels. The front 2 wheels dig in, and you are struggling really hard. So unless you know how to wheel all the way across the lawn in a wheelie, you're not really going anywhere, or you're going to struggle for a really long time and use a lot of your arm muscle and get really tired and exhausted. So adding this on here, it lifts those 2 little wheels up and makes it a 3-wheel, giving it a bigger wheel in the front so you don't dig into the grass like you would with the little wheels. Same thing with gravel, sand, all that kind of stuff. It makes you basically be able to go off-roading. I've gone on full hiking trails with the freewheel on my wheelchair. I've gone on actual hiking trails with it on there. That there is no way that I would have been able to do without it. It's also nice to have for when I have Colt jor my wheelchair, which is joring is where he's in a pole harness. I'm sure you've seen videos of it on our channel. But the pole harness is connected to, you know, a tie that goes all the way back to the center axle of my wheelchair, and he pulls from in front like a sled dog would, like mushing. It's very helpful to have that wheel instead of the little wheels, because if you were to run over a rock or stick or something, it would just go under the wheel like normal. With the little wheels, there are times where you can hit a rock and go flying out of your wheelchair if you weren't paying attention. So it makes it much safer. It also, you can go across, you know, railroad tracks, you can go down curbs and stuff like that, just driving right off. And so it's an extremely helpful tool. It's also very helpful for uneven surfaces. So even if it's not gravel or grass or sand, even uneven surfaces, when you're in a 4-wheel wheelchair, it's very squared, and so if one wheel's down lower, you're kind of getting stuck and you're having to you know, shift your body weight and try and, you know, get your wheels touching again so you can move. With the third wheel on the front, it's actually much easier to do even stuff like that. So the freewheel has been an amazing lifesaver for me, and I am so thankful for my sponsors that got me the freewheel, and it has changed everything about the wheelchair. There's times where, you know, you're not doing good and you have to be in the wheelchair, but you want to go and still have fun and be able to have the freedom to do what you want. And when you're in that much pain and you're having that bad of a day, or you can't use your right side at all and you're stuck in the wheelchair, it just helps to be able to have an adaptation that you can just simply clip on and make your wheelchair be able to go off-roading. You know, be able to go to the movie in the park because it's a football field length of grass that you have to cross, and there's no way you would have been able to do it without someone either straining to push you or, you know, carrying you or something like that. So it's very helpful. Another thing that I have that has helped me tremendously is this is a Smartdrive. So the Smartdrive is basically a really heavy baby. It's pretty heavy. I mean, it's not like, I think it's like 16 pounds or something like that. Maybe 12 pounds. I get numbers confused sometimes. But it's, you know, a tiny little thing that weighs a lot. So it's not easy to like lug around. But thankfully, even if it's not in use, you can have it on the back of your wheelchair. If you can see that, it just goes wherever your wheelchair goes. And what it is basically, you just put it on the little adaptation cradle that's on my wheelchair. This is an automatic driver. So basically, you have this wristband that's on your wrist, kind of looks like a Fitbit. You have it on your wrist, and you basically tell this device to turn on, to start driving, slow, fast, or whatever. So if you're on a really big hill and you're trying to get up this hill and you have no energy and you can't do it, this device is amazing. You can just turn it on, get you right up the hill. If you want to go at a faster speed, you could turn it on. It just helps propel you. So it turns your manual wheelchair into a power chair, basically. This, you know, you have full control on how fast you want to go, how slow you want to go. If you want to turn it off completely and it just wheels behind you, you know, it just stays there and is perfectly fine. It's definitely a game changer completely, especially when you put the freewheel and the Smartdrive together. It is extremely helpful. I wouldn't use this in like deep sand or something like that, or mud. That would just be a mess. But other than that, I've used it across some sand, not really deep sand, but some sand. I've used it on wet ground and it's worked, not really deep mud, but it works great either way. I've used it across gravel. Of course, there's a few bumps and stuff, and if it comes up off the ground and goes back down at all, you'll feel a little bit of lurching, which it's not necessarily the best for my health, but it doesn't happen all the time. And the pros of this device are so much more than any cons, even little tiny cons that you can even think of. It is hard to lug around if you don't just have it, you know, chilling on the back of your wheelchair all the time, which I have before, but I do also have a service dog, and he pulls my wheelchair, but then again, he also tucks under my wheelchair. So even if I'm using the Smartdrive to give him a break, which he needs a lot, it's not that he gets tired or anything, but I have to like tell him, take a break, and I don't want him to continue having to pull me, and then that causes me to overdo myself and cause myself pain. In the long run, And so it's just best that I have something that helps drive my wheelchair, whether it be my dog pulling me or, you know, this wonderful adaptation that I can add on that helps a lot. I'm really thankful for all the people that helped me get the Smartdrive. It is an amazing piece of equipment. I would have never really known about some of these things before my brain injury. I've learned a lot, and everything that I know about my wheelchair and everything that I've had to learn about is a blessing. Be able to help other people, and also just the wheelchair that I have is a blessing. I am so thankful for it. It's helped me so much on so many occasions. And you know, it's hard having to make the decision to be in a wheelchair. Even if it's just part-time, it is really hard, because of the fact that you want to continue to like be strong and keep pushing yourself. But in like the long run, when I got a wheelchair, which I kind of was like forced into it because of my latest brain injury, I had gotten even worse with my right side, that I wasn't able to really control it. So I had to have a wheelchair again, until I went through enough physical therapy and occupational therapy to get out of it. And I did get out of it, but I haven't gotten out of it 100%, like I was from my first brain injury in 2012. So I basically, you know, backslid a little bit in my health when I had another brain injury, and I never got back to what my 100% was after my first brain injury. So I have a little more challenges than I did, you know, that I fought through from my first brain injury. So I'm thankful for the tools that I have, and I hope that you learned something from this video and that it helps you out. I'm sorry if I rambled a lot. I'm trying to get all the information in this video so that I can help anybody who has any questions about it. So I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys later.